Welcome again to our class on the Chassidic approach to joy. We are on our last discussion for this series. This is the last chapter of the book by Rabbi Shlomo Majeski. And today we're actually going to be discussing a discourse from the Lubavitcher Rebbe back in 1988. In 1988, the discourse itself was focused on the special occasion of the anniversary dates of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's wedding, as well as some other things regarding the Hebrew dates, 5748, 5749. But there was a part of that spoke specifically to our discussion on joy. And so the Rebbe mentions there the relationship to joy, Simcha, and the Geula, the redemption, the final redemption with Mashiach. And he says that the concept of Simcha shares a connection to the future redemption, the redemption of Mashiach, where we will experience the consummate level of Simcha, the absolute joy. At that time, the undesirable influences will all be negated. So there will only be joyful things to be joyful about. And as the reverse says, the pasuk says, and God will wipe away tears from every face, and all the negative influences will be all transformed into good. There's also another interesting part about it is that Simcha and Mashiach share the same Hebrew letters, Shin, Mem, and Ches. Different order, but it shares the same Hebrew letters. And we know that in one of the forms of learning things out of the Torah is to learn through a transposition of letters, the things that are related one to the other. And so we talk about the returning, the Jews are, when we return to Israel, when we return to the Holy Land, is being described that the Jews returning will be crowned with eternal joy. So there's a definite connection between Mashiach. And the Rebbe talks further about the connection between Mashiach and Simcha, joy, because we talk about the pasuk that says, we know about Simcha Paretzes Geder, that joy breaks through all barriers, all boundaries. And we know that this is the nature of Mashiach, that Mashiach will also break through all the boundaries of the challenges that face the world. And Mashiach is a descendant of Peretz. Peretz is mentioned in the Torah as one of the grandchildren of Yisrael, of Jacob, and that he, in the birthing process, he broke through the birthing process, meaning he was born quickly. It was a very quick delivery, and he was given the name Peretz, one who breaks through. That was the name. And Mashiach will also be one who breaks through and rises up to the top of things, breaking all the barriers and limitations in our exile. So, therefore, the Rebbe back in 1988, so the Rebbe mentioned the idea that if we increase our rejoicing with the intention of bringing Mashiach and the true and ultimate redemption, in other words, that there have been numerous things that have been talked about, all of the things that the Talmud talks about, these things have to happen before Mashiach can come. Well, all those have happened. And so all the things that are required to happen before Mashiach should come, those have all been a prophecy. They've all happened. The last thing, which was we talk about the coming of Mashiach, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Chassidic movement. There was a prophecy that he had, so to speak. We had in his dreams, in his meditational visions, he ascended to the chamber of Mashiach, and he asked Mashiach, so when are you coming already? The Jewish way of asking things, like, when are you coming already, right? The Mashiach said, that when your teachings of Chassidus will spread out, when the wellsprings of Chassidus will spread out throughout the world. And so this was said to the Baal Shem Tov, a couple hundred years ago, but over the course of the past couple of generations, the Chabad Rebbeim have spread out Chassidus, very, very broad. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said that everything necessary for Mashiach has been done. All that's necessary is to polish the buttons. Polish the buttons, in your uniform and stand ready, right? And so we've seen that his efforts to spread Chassidus were the translating of Chassidus into other languages and to send his emissaries out to different locations around the world. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe began this work. The current Rebbe, our Rebbe, one in the picture behind me there, spread out his father-in-law's work even farther, so that many languages, Chassidus was translated into many languages and to many locations. And his shluchim, his emissaries, have gone all over the world. All over the world. I remember there was a couple of decades ago, there was a running joke that you can, wherever you can find Coca-Cola, you can find Chabad. But Chabad was in communist Russia and Coke wasn't. Oh. So Chabad was even further. But of course, we've seen it spread, farther and farther in all directions. And the Rebbe also led a campaign once that the printing of Tanya, which is the magnum opus of the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the printing of Tanya, there was a campaign to print it in all kinds of places. And so you actually had mobile printing machines put on trucks and taken to different locations and printed. I was living in California in the early 80s during this campaign, and trucks went to all the different places, the cities, all the cities in California where there'd be a dozen Jews, and the printing press went there and printed up Tanyas and gathered a couple of Jews together and would learn some of the Chassidus right there in that location. Again, to spread out the well springs of the teachings of Chassidus to all the different corners. In fact, some people used to collect these Tanyas. And my son, one of my sons has a Tanya that was printed in Lebanon. Because when the Israeli soldiers, during one of the wars, when they went into Lebanon, so the Chabad printing press, mobile press, was right behind them. Right behind them, and was able to print a Tanya in Beirut. So it was very fascinating. So, this idea of spreading out the well springs of Chassidus to help bring Mashiach faster. And so what the Rebbe asked, what else can be done? What have we not done to do to encourage and bring Mashiach? And so in 1988, the Rebbe was talking about that since we know that Simcha breaks through barriers, it can even include breaking through the barrier of exile, of this gullus. And so that Simcha has a unique potential to break through the barriers of exile and help bring Mashiach now. And so therefore we should do things not only with Simcha, because you want to do things with joy and with Simcha, but we should actually have in mind, keep in mind the idea that we're doing this to help encourage and bring Mashiach sooner. Hang on just a moment. Okay, continuing. So, and we're talking about the idea of Simcha Peretz Geta, that joy breaks through the boundaries, and that can include to break through this exile, this gullus. So the idea of doing everything we possibly can to bring Mashiach includes keeping in mind that through our joy, through our Simcha, we can actually bring the Geula, the redemption, closer and faster. And so that's one of our goals, is to bring Mashiach now. And so to keeping that in mind, when you do a mitzvah, so there's the physical act of the mitzvah, and then there's the kavanah, the intention behind it. And so the idea of having intention behind intentionally being joyful to help bring Mashiach closer. And that's the end of our discussions. Thumbs up.